Well, hello, I'm Richard Branson and we are in Oxfordshire and a beautiful sunny morning. Come for a walk around the lake. We're in the back garden of what's been the family home for many years, and I love nature. It's got, as you can see, I think we're looking at about 200 Canadian geese there, and we have black swans and a lot of wild birds that fly in here. And a lot of my thinking actually gets done just walking around this lake, and a lot of decisions get made. So I've never worked in an office. I've always worked from home ever since I was a teenager, and I've found that that's worked well for me. And so a lot of the best decisions have been made walking around the lake. I was fortunate enough to have had Al Gore contact us to see if he could come and talk to me. And he came to basically, give me the lecture of the inconvenient truth before the film had actually come out, to try to rally my support to tackle the problems of global warming. And what he said to me, I found extremely disturbing and extremely worrying, and decided to try to help him do something about it. I've been very fortunate. I've travelled the world and I've experienced firsthand what the real problems of the world are, and I suppose because I've become a global figure, I'm able to use the position I find myself in to try to sort of tackle some of those, what look like intractable problems. So one is conflict resolution. If you have conflicts in a country or countries, nothing works. People can't go to school, the hospitals break down, people can't get food. There are literally thousands of different problems in the world, and Virgin Unite tries to tackle as many as we financially are able to do. Peter Gabriel, who used to be one of our artists on Virgin, and myself, we were talking about African villages having their own elders, where the local villagers could go to those elders if they had problems. And we thought, well, who's the elder in the world that has the most respect? And I think universally people would say Nelson Mandela. And so, we went to see Nelson Mandela and said, look, would you be the founding elder of a group who can address some of the world's problems? And he agreed to do so, and he then chose wonderful people like Kofi Annan and Archbishop Desmond Tutu and President Carter from America, and asked them if they would be part of 12 elders who could go in and look at the conflicts in the world, and if they felt strongly about global warming issues, to speak out about them, or if they felt strongly about other issues, to speak out about them. And so the elders has only been going about 2 years, but has already done some remarkable things. They've just, for instance, come back from Israel and Palestine to try to see if they can move that situation forward and try to help resolve that particular conflict. Last year, Kofi Annan and Gracia Machel and Archbishop Desmond Tutu helped resolve the problems of Kenya when that country was falling apart. So conflict is one thing. And then we've also looked at using our entrepreneurial business skills to look at the problem of global warming. If it was a problem that's as serious as a war, which a lot of people think it is, you'd have a war room. And what is the enemy? The enemy is carbon. So we've set up a war room. And then likewise, we're setting up a centre for disease control in Africa to try to get on top of those problems and try to stamp out malaria and stamp out TB, and to try to help people who've got HIV get antiretroviral drugs, and those people who haven't got HIV, try to help them avoid getting HIV. I was fortunate that I came from a family that was full of love, and I could talk to my parents about anything, and we were a very close family. So I had a sort of solid, stable background there. Having said that, they sent me off to school at 7.5, which I would never do to our children today. And, I didn't particularly like school. I didn't particularly like the way I was taught at school. And I didn't particularly like, what was going on in the world. By the age of 13, 14, there was the Vietnamese War taking place, the Biafran War. And I felt that young people needed a voice and didn't have any money. So I worked out of the school phone box to try to sell enough advertising so I could launch a magazine to try to put the world right as a young enthusiastic boy. And I was fortunate. I managed to sell enough advertising by saying, look, to Coca-Cola or to the banks or to other people, the oil companies, look, this is your way to get to young people. And it was an incredible education. I met thousands of interesting people, interviewed lots of people, travelled the world, and I suspect learned certainly as much as I could have learned at school, by being an editor, but being a publisher. I mean, whilst I was running the magazine, we all loved music, and an artist came to me. He couldn't find anybody to release his music. He was only 15 years old. I was only 16 years old. And so I decided to try to release his music myself. And I was trying to think of a name for a record company, and I came up with Slip Disc Records. And then one of the girls jokingly said, well, we're all virgins, why don't we call it Virgin Records? So Virgin Records was born. And over the next few years, because the record company was quite irreverent and we promoted things in a fun way, it attracted bands like the Rolling Stones and the Sex Pistols and, Phil Collins and Boy George. Anyway, lots of great bands. And I used to travel all over the world. And the experience I had was not that pleasant. So I decided one day to form an airline. And I rang up Boeing and I said, look, this is Richard Branson, and I want to buy a second-hand 747 off you. And they said, well, what's the name of your company? And I said, Virgin. And they said, what does Virgin do? And I said, well, we've got bands like the Rolling Stones, the Sex Pistols. And they said, you want to run an airline? And I said, yes. And surprisingly, they didn't put the phone down on me. They took me reasonably seriously. They said they'd send over a salesman to England. And they just said, look, as long as a company with a name like that created an airline that did actually go the whole way, they would be happy to talk to us seriously. And we ended up buying a second-hand 747 off them, and Virgin was born. Yeah, just walking away from the lake. This is the Cherwell River, which is beautiful, which goes down here through the Mill House and then heads on down towards Oxford. And it's fortunately very, very peaceful and quiet here. When I launched the airline, I knew that I didn't have the advertising budget to try to out-advertise British Airways, so I had to do some other things to try to put Virgin on the map. The first thing I tried to do was to see if I could break the record for the fastest crossing of the Atlantic by boat. Sadly, the boat sank about a few hundred miles from the UK, but anyway, we picked ourselves up and we tried again the following year, and we were successful. And then the following year, we decided to see if we could be the first people ever to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. Once again, the balloon hit the water quite hard in the North Sea, and we were rescued by helicopters. But we got the record for crossing the Atlantic. And then we went on and did the Pacific and tried to go around the world. So we did take risks. We tried to make sure that the downside was protected, that if if the worst came to the worst and we crashed in the water, that somehow or another we would survive. And that's equally important in business. If you take risks in business, that's a good thing, because in order to achieve anything in life, you've got to take bold moves and bold risks, but try to make sure that whatever risk you take, you either don't lose your life over it or you don't lose your business over it. And somehow or another, over the years of being an entrepreneur and businessman, we've managed to survive, despite the fact that we haven't always been successful. I don't personally think I could sell anything. I think that to sell something, you have to believe in what you're selling. You have to have an absolute passion for what you're selling. And if you've created something that is really special, then it's easy to sell. I think the important thing is only to actually go into creating new businesses where you really feel you can make a difference, where there's a real need for the Virgin brand to go. The times we've made mistakes are where we've gone into things where we can't make a real difference. For instance, we thought we could take on Coca-Cola. We thought it'd be great fun to take on Coca-Cola, and we thought we could knock them into number 2 position. The problem was that although our soft drink was just as good as theirs, there wasn't enough of a difference that we could make. I've spent my life building businesses that I can be proud of, that hopefully have made a difference to people's lives, and I think know how to do that. I think that my favourite phrase I use is "screw it, let's do it." And somebody comes up with an idea, or we come up with an idea, and we don't wait for the accountants to come and cost it out. Literally, just say, "Screw it, let's do it, let's get on with it." And whether it's gut feeling or whether it's just feeling based on experience. I mean, personally, I believe that if there's if something's not being done well by somebody else, it's likely that as long as we do it well, it will be successful. And that applies both to business and to social issues. First of all, if you're setting up a business and you're trying to build a company, you first of all want to create something which, the public can be proud of what you've created, but equally important, that the people who work within that company can be really proud of what they're trying to do. So there's no point in actually doing something unless you're going to make a real difference in life. I think if you're running a company, it's critical that you're really good at dealing with people, that you genuinely care about people. You don't just care about the top people in the company, you care about everybody in the company, the cleaning ladies, the switchboard operators, everybody that sort of makes up your company, and you obviously try to learn all their names, and you take genuine interest in them. Obviously we have nearly 60,000 people now, so it's not always possible for me to know everybody, but I certainly over the years used to know everybody and try to make sure that any managing directors that are actually running companies treat people who work for them extremely well, and actually make sure that they know everybody by their first names. That I believe is extremely important. In a sense, it doesn't matter in life whether you're enormously successful financially, or whether you're just successful, or even whether you fail at what you do. I think the important thing is to throw yourself into whatever you're doing and enjoy every minute of it. And if you fall flat on your face, you pick yourself up again and you try again, and you might fall flat on your face, you pick yourself up again and you try again. Most people are not, if they say, for instance, go into business, are not that successful. There's something like 90% of people who try, do fall flat on their face. But the journey in trying to be successful, they will have had the most incredible journey. They would have learned a lot more than other people who didn't try. And, the important thing is just giving things a go. Now, I think that if you become successful in whatever area of life you are in, and if wealth comes with that success, extreme responsibility comes with that success as well. And you have the responsibility to basically not waste the position you're in, to use that wealth to try to help other people, and to try to either create new jobs by creating new businesses, or to use that money to tackle some of the intractable social problems of the world. And in so doing, I think you lead a better life. It's a wonderful sort of motivating force for all the people who work for the company to know it's not just a money-making machine. It's, for instance, Virgin is actually trying to achieve a lot more than just trying to create businesses. Most major entrepreneurs in America have tried and failed on a number of occasions before they became successful, and they learned from their failure. And I think that some of the most interesting people are people who've tried things in life and failed. The critical thing is just to pick yourself up and try again. My first skydive was that I pulled the lever that got rid of the parachute, not the one that opened the parachute. Fortunately, my reserve chute opened, but I was made to get straight back in that aeroplane again, and it wasn't pleasant going up the second time. But anyway, it helped me overcome my fear, and I think that the same applies in business. If you try something and you fail, just pick yourself up again and try again. I think the important thing for anybody in life is to have made a difference, whether it's to have made a difference to your children or your friends around you, or if you're lucky enough to made a difference to the greater world. And obviously I hope that in my lifetime I have made a difference, and I hope in the next sort of 30 years or so I can make a bigger difference. I'd be extremely happy to give up everything I've got in life, apart from maybe my family, because I think that would be rather sad, and start all over again. I mean, I love building things. I love the challenge of creating things, and creating things I'm proud of. And so I would swap with any 21-year-old, because the opportunities in the world are enormous. To have so much pleasure from getting out there and trying to create things that you're proud of. I still get involved in some wonderful business challenges, and I suspect the most exciting, out of this world business challenge that we're getting involved in is space travel. NASA have just announced, and the American government, that they're going to cut right back on space exploration, and it's going to be up for commercial companies like Virgin Galactic to step in their shoes and to enable you and me and our children and grandchildren to be able to experience space travel and go and look at the incredible universe that exists above us. The spaceship comes out in December, and then we'll have about 18 months of extensive tests, and then myself, Holly and Sam, my children, and my parents, Eve and Ted, will go into space, and then hopefully there will be generations of other families that will be able to go into space after us. People like Stephen Hawkins are going up, and obviously his health is not great. My father will be 94 when he goes up, and his health is not too bad, but he is 94. And so the great thing about our particular spaceship program is that you don't need the sort of extensive training that you do with a NASA spaceship. It's been great to sort of walk around the lake with you and go over a few nuggets of my life, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. And I have a sort of favourite phrase, which is nothing ventured, nothing gained. So get out there and venture and enjoy it, and don't be afraid of falling flat on your face in the process.